Far, far away, in a small idyllic village, the color red is completely forbidden. In order to remove it from their lives, the citizens avoid killing animals, living on a meatless diet instead. This careful lifestyle helps to keep them safe from the dangerous creatures that lurk in the surrounding woods. In what seems like a 19th century village, surrounded from all sides by a dark forest, the residents are attending the funeral of a child. During the ceremony, they hear howling coming from the woods, which they attribute to those we don't speak of. Noah, a young man with an apparent developmental disability, rejoices at the scary sounds, much to the dismay of others. It is obvious that his antics are a great matter of concern to the people of the village. With the nameless monsters hiding in the shadows, the atmosphere in the village is tense, to say the least. Despite the dangers and the tragedies, though, the villagers live together in peace and harmony, cheerfully helping each other with everyday tasks. The concerns of the village elders amplify when Mr. Walker, the local teacher, discovers his students huddled up around a dead animal. It has been brutally killed and most of its fur has been removed. The children suspect those we don't speak of, but Mr. Walker is quick to reassure them, saying that the border separating them from the creatures has not been breached. He reminds them that the watchtower set up to spot the creatures wouldn't have missed the breach if there was any. Although the creature's presence doesn't weigh on the people's minds as much as one would expect, the death of the child is still a heavy burden. It prompts Lucius Hunt, son of one of the most important village elders, to ask the council for permission to go to the towns for medicines. Lucius was very close to the late child and hopes to avoid any such tragedies in the future. He makes his case, but the council denies his request. He goes home and, as he prepares for his shift at the watchtower, receives a reprimand from his mother. At the tower, he and his friend Flint end up talking about the towns. Flint believes them to be wicked places where wicked people lead their wicked lives, an attitude shared by the entire village. The next morning, Covington's residents discover yet another slaughtered animal. The panic spreads. The elders hold a meeting and Alice, Lucius's mother, informs the residents that these killings were probably the work of coyotes or wolves. She advises them to be attentive of their children when they play near the hills. Given the knowledge that they are large beasts, she reassures them. It would be impossible for those we don't speak of to have breached the perimeter without anyone noticing. As the people regain their peace of mind, Kitty, Mr. Walker's daughter, goes to speak to her father about a matter that's been on her mind for quite a while: marriage. She is in love with Lucius and wants to marry him. Mr. Walker doesn't share her excitement. He is displeased since the groom himself is unaware of her plans. Kitty presses him to give his blessing regardless. Lucius is shy and she doesn't want to make her intentions known to him without having her father's approval. Once Mr. Walker reluctantly gives her the green light, Kitty rushes off to confess to Lucius. She tells him about her love for him in a flurry of excitement, asking him to spend the rest of his life with her. She is rejected, instantly so. Ivy, a childhood friend of Lucius and Kitty's sister, is special. Despite being blind, she navigates the world perfectly using her cane and a second sight that allows her to see colors of some people and objects. Ivy is also friends with Noah, who seems to have a soft spot for her. When he picks a fight with some of the other boys, Ivy makes them break apart and reprimands him. She then strikes a deal with him. He promises her not to ever hit anyone again, and she, in turn, will help him escape the punishment of getting put into the quiet room. Agreeing to the bargain, Noah places a kiss on Ivy's cheek to seal it. Smiling, they decide to play around for a bit and have a foot race to a place called the Resting Rocks. As they arrive there, the pair stumbles across Lucius, whom Ivy instantly recognizes based on his color. It's the same one as her father's, the only one she can see in the darkness. She asks him about Kitty, who cried her heart out to her after the breakup, taking him by surprise. It becomes clear that they both know why Lucius rejected Kitty, because he had feelings for Ivy. He tried to hide them, but she has long since been aware of his love and quietly reciprocated. In the middle of the conversation, Noah comes from where he ran off to and hands some berries to Ivy. They are red, of the bad color. Lucius realizes that he must have gone into the woods, and after getting Noah himself to confirm it, he feels his desire to go to the towns reignite. He takes Noah being fine as proof that the creatures don't hurt those who don't have bad intentions. This realization prompts him to approach the elders again. He argues that surely those we don't speak of would consider getting medicine to be a good intention, so his passage should be safe. His appeal is declined once again. Back home, Alice shows her disappointment in Lucius. She reveals that his father was robbed and murdered when he had gone to the town. Lucius accuses her of keeping secrets from him, pointing at the black box, a box that all the elders own to store the tragic past of the towns they had left behind. In a heated conversation, he also states that Mr. Walker probably likes Alice, using the same reasoning as Ivy did to prove his feelings for her. The lack of elders' approval doesn't stop Lucius for long. He ventures into the thick woods and quickly discovers the berries. When he returns, he finds Ivy and the young pair has a moment. Lucius walks her to her place and mentions the towns again. He argues that Noah might still be able to grow and learn if they could find the proper medicines for people like him. Ivy cuts the conversation short, stating her discomfort. She informs him that Kitty has gotten engaged to someone else and is soon to be married. With her older sibling spoken for, this allows Ivy to pursue her own romantic interests. She confesses her feelings to Lucius. Later that same night, the guard on watch notices one of those we don't speak of breaching the border and entering the village. After a moment of hesitation, he alerts everyone. All the residents rush to get into their respective basements, but Ivy is adamant to wait for Lucius, believing he will come back to make sure she's okay. She refuses to get into the basement with the rest of her family and Noah. Just as she's about to be grabbed by the creature, Lucius arrives and together they join the others in the basement. The creatures have left warning marks in the village, causing the elders to hold another meeting. They claim that there must have been a reason. They have never been attacked without cause. Lucius, through an apology note, confesses about his little trip to the wood, stating that it's he who has caused the attack. Mr. Walker forgives him and calls him brave for admitting it, while Noah creates another scene. Amidst the terror, the residents all gather together to celebrate Kitty's marriage ceremony. During the celebration, Alice comes to the realization that Lucius's words about Mr. Walker were true. He does have feelings for her. She rejoices in this little discovery. All seems to go well until they hear a distant scream. The harmony is abruptly broken as they find livestock murdered and skinned. The identity of the attacker is clear. That night, Lucius sits on Ivy's front porch, clearly worried about her. Ivy joins him and they share a wholesome moment. Lucius finally confesses his ardent love for her and states that she's the most important person to him. The next morning, the entire village seems to rejoice about their love. This enjoyment is cut short when Noah arrives at Lucius's place. It's clear that he's upset about Lucius and Ivy's union. Although Lucius tries to reason with him, Noah stabs him and leaves him to bleed out. Noah's parents find him with blood all over his hands. The news spreads like wildfire, but no one knows who has been injured. The people set out to search everywhere. When Ivy is informed, she immediately goes to find Lucius. She discovers his injured body and screams in agony. Her anger knows no bounds when she approaches Noah. She repeatedly slaps him and has to be dragged away. Noah, on the other hand, is locked up. A solemn silence befalls the village. A doctor examining Lucius states that his condition is critical and the only thing left to do is pray. This makes Ivy adamant to cross the woods for the medicines that might save her lover's life. Upon informing her father of her intentions, he hesitantly agrees, but not before revealing a dreadful secret. As it turns out, the creatures, those we don't speak of, are not real. They are a story made up by the elders to stop the residents from ever leaving the village. The attacks and the story of the bad color were orchestrated by the elders, as they firmly believe that the towns have nothing to offer but misery and tragedy. Thus, Mr. Walker reveals to Ivy that the woods are actually safe to pass. He begs her to return soon. Ivy sets out on her journey, wearing yellow, the color that does not attract the creatures. Although she is at first accompanied by two other young men, they soon leave her behind out of fear. Ivy resolves to venture alone. Devoid of sight and having no one to assist her except her walking stick, she struggles to walk through the dense forest. At one point, she steps on soft ground and almost falls into a deep hole. She somehow holds onto a branch and climbs back. Almost immediately after resuming the journey, she hears a growl. She chants to herself that the creatures are not real, but alas, she is still being chased by one. She runs away, hurting herself in the process. She reaches the hole she had fallen in earlier and holds out her arms, reminiscent of a game the boys in her village used to play on the forest's boundary to test their bravery. She always wanted to try it. As she hears the creature rush toward her, she moves, making it fall into the pit. Unfortunately, it is then revealed that Mr. Walker was not lying. The creature is not some monster, just Noah wearing a costume he stole from the elders. As he falls into the hole, he gets impaled on the sharp branches inside. He bleeds out on the forest floor. Ivy, meanwhile, triumphant and unaware of the creature's identity, stumbles upon a tall wall. As she reaches the other side, a park ranger driving a patrol car finds her. He's astonished to discover that anyone lives in the woods. Ivy pleads with him to get her the medicine. The kind man takes pity on her and promises to fetch her everything from her list. He goes back to his boss, not mentioning the encounter with Ivy, and retrieves the drugs for her. She returns to the village after finishing her journey successfully. This entire encounter reveals an odd truth. On the outside, it is the 21st century. In Ivy's absence, the elders open their black box. It contains the memories of all the people they have lost. As it turns out, they had all met in a grief counseling clinic where they had come together to plan a place where they would live in harmony, away from the pain and suffering of the outside world. Mr. Walker, a billionaire in mourning, established a village in the 1970s, funding the Ranger Corps to protect the boundaries and making it a no-fly zone. Ultimately, the elders created the stories of the deadly creatures to stop their children and loved ones from leaving. Ivy, unaware of the truth, returns victoriously with the medicines. The residents are rejoicing that Ivy's arrival with the medicines will revive Lucius, while Noah's parents mourn their son's death when they hear about the death of a deadly creature in the woods. The other elders promise to give the boy a proper burial and also comment that his death will restore the fear of the creatures amongst the residents, thus keeping everyone together in their village. The order is restored and the Great Lie remains protected.